just to shake up the rhythm a little bit, we've got a slightly different session now in our last session just before our break. And Margaret and Michael are going to come and join the stage. The mystery third guest on the slide there is not a person at all, but it's a reference to a report. We've had lots of questions about what the students think about some of this, and wouldn't it be good to have some student views? You're now about to hear from 7,000 plus of them all in one go, summarised by some very smart people making sense of data on what students think about AI and non-AI feedback. Michael, you look like you're going to lead this session from this lectern. I'll leave it with you and Margaret. Please make them welcome.
Hey gang, it's fantastic to be here. It's a real privilege. A key theme all day has been understand deeply our students. Almost every single session has been sending that message. Well, that's what this project's about. We get the privilege of the two of us. We draw the short straws or the long straws, whichever way you look at it, to represent a multi-institutional project fully supported by our DVCs from Deakin, Monash, UTS and UQ. There's about 20 of us, researchers across embedded in faculty, across in central positions, all keen on understanding students' experiences of AI. We reported last year some of our data. This year we thought we'd go a little bit deeper on a particular theme around feedback. So we do focus groups, surveys, etc. And we're going to report a little bit on the data from our survey from the end of last year. But just to let you know, the project is alive and it's going. There's some great and exciting plans that we're currently doing, looking at how to build collaborative design labs with students so that we can actually get them to work with us collaboratively to design what the future might be, how AI might fit in. 3 key ideas at the moment in those labs around feedback, learning, and integrity. But that's all shaping up and it'll be to come, and hopefully we'll get invited back again to talk to you about this. Today, we're going to present a little bit of our data, which we thought is particularly interesting. And you may have seen these out on the front desk. Grab one of these if you like, or use the QR code, our third presenter. Hopefully everyone online can see that. So why feedback? Well, if you are a bit new to the field, you might be surprised to hear, but I think everyone else is already on this on the same hymn, and that feedback is understood to be one of the most powerful processes that impacts students' experiences and outcomes, both positively and negatively. So basically, if we get it wrong, we do harm. So it's not a choice about whether we should tweak it, improve it, what's going on. It's not about simply delivery information. It's not about corrective. The feedback, after a decade of researching in this space, I keep getting surprised about the complexity, the different dimensions, the relational aspects, the socio-emotional well-being, the kind of impacts that it has way beyond simply getting a little bit better of a grade. So just to kick us off a little bit, you'll see that in the handout, but one of our very first statistics was, do you use AI for your feedback practices to the students? Well, 50%, 49.7% actually said yes. And we were a little bit surprised by this because we specifically said this was not about you getting AI to do your work for you, but you actually were trying to get information about how you're tracking, what you should do about it, etc. So this is not a situation of saying, do the work for me. It's helping them understand where they're at. Of the students who did not do it, so about 50% of the students said no, they didn't use AI for feedback. We said, well, why? And so we analysed their open-ended text responses, and 2 key themes came out of it. First of all, and not necessarily more importantly, they were unsure about its reliability. They were unsure about whether to trust it. The other one, which is about the same kind of strength in their responses, was simply, oh, seriously, I could use AI for feedback? Cool. And we actually had it in the open text responses. A few people said, I never thought of it. I might try it now. So there's this kind of accessibility through just understanding the options available. But I'll hand it over to you, Margaret, to take us through some of the other results.
Hello. Yes, so as Michael's saying, this is a really interesting survey for us, and you may have looked at the results a little, but in a nutshell, both were very helpful, and in fact, the AI was rated as being somewhat helpful more frequently than teacher feedback. But when we compared them, students said that teacher feedback was very helpful more often. So there was a significant result in the rating of helpfulness in favour of the teacher, but it was only a small effect. We asked them to compare how trustworthy was the feedback. And again, both were rated as being somewhat trustworthy, but teacher feedback again was seen as more trustworthy than AI feedback, and that was a large effect. So we certainly are seeing some degree of trust in teacher feedback, some degree of helpfulness in teacher feedback than we do in AI feedback. But that is not to say that AI feedback was neither untrustworthy nor unhelpful. I guess what we're also seeing, and we analysed a lot of free text comments, and we did do it manually, and that was a bit of work. Part of the reason we did it manually was because of the methods we used. So we were doing this comparative notion, and what we found was that Gen AI and teacher feedback were comparable with respect to when in the free text comments they said they were both equally helpful, they were both specific, and they were both detailed in similar measures. So this is sort of surprising results for us. But that the teachers were more helpful for reflection, they were more reliable, they were more personal, they were nuanced, relevant, contextualised, expert, sorts of things that you might want teachers to be. They were more frequently negative, so our students shared a few horror stories that I did hand code about how negative teachers could be, and importantly, they were felt to be risky. So very similar to what we heard before about the chatbots and asking a stupid question. If you ask a question of an AI to get feedback, you can ask as silly a question as you like, and the AI isn't going to care. On the other hand, the Gen AI was much more accessible. It was much more understandable, which is interesting. Could be asked as many times as you liked, and it was more positive. It was a very positive in tone. That wasn't always seen as being a good thing, because positive isn't always helpful. I'm starting to see some differences there. So this has some implications for teaching and learning.
Sure. So one thing we know, they're using it. Okay? That they are using it. But they're using AI for feedback for what we're seeing is valued different kind of moments. Okay? So they're still valuing the teacher and they're valuing AI. It's not actually sort of arguing against each other because they're using it at different times and for different purposes, different values. So as we were putting our heads together, we're thinking, what does that really mean? Well, straight away, it means that since they're using it, since it does seem to be providing value, then what are we doing about supporting them? Just full stop. What are we doing? Is it enough to talk about policy? Is it enough to talk about access? What's the next step? And we talked about the idea of, and we're both a bit critical of the term literacy and how it's applied all the time, but nevertheless, the idea generally of feedback literacy, absolutely, AI literacy, how do all these come together so that the students can make the most of these moments, and how do we support and we know how we can interact with them? And the other
side of the coin to that is, of course, if you think about students, you have to think about teachers. So what do we need how do we need to work with our teachers? What is the role of the teacher here? We're seeing that the teacher does things if you want better. Students perceive teachers as doing things better, and I think notably, again, it's this sort of relational work. It's personal, position teachers as experts. There's a sense of a different sense according to both sorts of feedback. So in this microcosm of feedback, we're starting to examine some of these very questions we've been looking at all day. What do humans do? What do AI do? And I guess what we're seeing here is kind of a slightly complex picture. And I guess that's where we're going to leave you, really, is to say that it is complex, but we have to invest in our students to make sure that because they will be using AI to get feedback, we need to invest in how they understand that and how it fits into their world. And we need to invest in our teachers because our students trust us at the moment with their feedback. Do we deserve that trust? Maybe we do. Will we continue to learn? Will we continue to deserve that trust as the AI changes and in a changing world? And I think that's a challenge for us.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you so much, Margaret. I'll just make a comment or two just in closing there. I think that's been a great example. I don't know if I'm showing my age here, and that this snapshot in time, competition, if it's not a competition, but a comparison between what our students think of teacher feedback and AI feedback, I'd love to see how that changes over time. Sort of makes me think about the chess master against the IBM computer from however many years ago and that competition. But more than competition, I think that's been a great example of collaboration. We mentioned it briefly in passing when Veronica and George and Tim were on the stage, but I think it's fantastic how UQ, Western Sydney University and OES came together to assist Tim in being able to come and be with us here today, and I'd like to thank all of them publicly. I think it's great that these four universities in UQ, UTS, Monash and Deakin have taken it as an initiative through their DVCs, many of whom are in the room and have funded it, to initiate a project around an urgent issue as a collaboration that's got momentum, that's able to share insights back to us. I hope you'll come back to every HEDx and tell us where some of that feedback's up to. And I know your project is looking at the idea of co-design labs in the future. And I know that's an idea that's been brewing. Wouldn't it be great with a room like this, with members like that and with partners like that? We had co-design workshops that weren't just for universities, were many, and had some of the tech providers joining in with those universities to accelerate the way that the combination of human intervention and technology advancement here could bring about change in higher education for good. I'm going to leave you with that thought while you go and have afternoon tea. We'll be coming back to look at more about AI implementation after the break, but for now, please thank the members of the previous session.